Good morning, students, and welcome to another English Solutions for Business and Life video. Don't forget, you can always get in touch with us at EnglishSolutions001@gmail.com. Let's begin. In this video, we're going to cover our Unit 6, which corresponds to our elementary book, and we will be studying and checking the grammar aspects. In this unit, we're going to check how to express ability and opportunity using the auxiliary can. We're also going to practice adverbs with that same auxiliary can, and we're going to check the verb to be in the past form. Alright, well, let's begin with abilities and opportunities. First off, we need to remember that the auxiliary can expresses abilities and opportunities. The formula is very simple, which is a subject, can, verb in simple form, as well as our complement if it is necessary. This is for the affirmative form. In the negative form, we will have subject, the auxiliary can't, and we'll also have our verb in simple form and our complement if it's necessary. Finally, for the question, we have, remember there are two types of questions, the yes, no questions, and the information questions. For the yes, no questions, we have can, subject, verb in simple form, and our complement if necessary. And for the information questions, we have a question word that can be what, who, where, when, etc. And then we follow the same formula, can, subject, verb in simple form, and our complement if necessary. Let's analyze first. Let's first analyze the affirmative. We have two examples. He can play the guitar. He can play the guitar. And this is expressing an ability. Why? Because I am expressing that I have the ability to produce music with this instrument. Also, in opportunity, we have we can go to your party. In this case, we are expressing that we have the opportunity to attend to this person's party. And then, as we mentioned before, we have the formula, which is very simple. The formula is subject and then auxiliary can, verb in simple form, and in this case the complement is the guitar. In the second one, we have we, which is our subject, can, which is our auxiliary that expresses an opportunity, go, that is our verb in simple form, and to your party, which is our complement. Something important to mention is that can is used for all persons, which is I, he, she, it, we, you, and they. Very good. Let's continue. Now, this is an example of our negative form. In the first one we have, I can't sing like a professional singer. And this is expressing an ability. In the second one, I can't give you the results of your exams your exam right now. We're expressing the opportunity. In negative, of course, both of them. In the first one, we have then again our subject, auxiliary in negative, that is can't. Normally, when you speak, when you are in a normal conversation, the pronunciation of this auxiliary is only a longer version of the other one. In affirmative, we say can't, and in the negative form, we say can't. Normally, making emphasis in the negative intention. Then we have our verb in simple form, which is sing, and our complement, that is like a professional singer. Now we have the opportunity example. We have our subject, which is I, our auxiliary, that is can't, and then we have our verb in simple form, which is give, and our complement. You the results of your exam right now. With right now, I am expressing that at this moment, it is not possible to provide or to give the results of the exam. Now let's go to the questions. Remember that in English, most of the times what we have to do is an inversion of elements. If we have subject auxiliary or subject verb, what we change is the auxiliary and the subject. In affirmative, we would have, you can give me a ride. But if we're asking a question, we say, can you give me a ride? Don't forget that intonation at the end. And then we have our elements that we mentioned before, which is auxiliary can, subject you, verb in simple form give, and our complement, me a ride. And in the other one, we have, which is for abilities, is what instruments can you play? What instruments can you play? And then we have the same formula for questions, which is auxiliary, subject, verb. But before that, we have our question word, because we want to know specific information, and we ask it with the question word what, and our complement goes here this time around because we want to know what instruments this person can play. Alright, our next item is adverbs with can. Example of this, she can sing well. Let's analyze this grammar. Okay, well, first off, it's important to remember that adverbs describe how we do things. An example of this is if a person asks you, how does she sing? The answer would be, she sings well. This is the adverb. The adverb well expresses how she sings. Alright, we have some examples here. The first one, he can text very quickly. He can text very quickly. They speak English badly. They speak English badly. In the third one, I can swim very fast. I can swim very fast. Okay, in the first one, which is expressing an ability, we have our subject, our auxiliary, our verb in simple form, our complement, and finally our adverb. And it's answering the question, how does he text? How does he text? He texts very quickly. Texts very quickly. Or he can text very quickly. In the second one, we're talking about an ability to. And we say they speak English badly. And there we have our subject, our verb in present, because we are not using the auxiliary can. And then we have our complement, which is English, and our adverb, which is badly. Then again, how do they speak? They speak badly. In the third one, we're expressing another ability, and we say, I can swim very fast. Alright, and we have one more time our subject, our auxiliary can, and then we have our verb in simple form because we're using the auxiliary can, and we have our complement, which is very, and our adverb, which is fast. Remember and know that most adverbs have the ending ly, like we can see here. But also we have other types of adverbs that are different, normally called irregular adverbs. You can study them on Google or internet if you prefer. Alright, let's move to our third item, also very important, the verb to be in past. The formula is quite simple. We only have to remember that for I he, she, and it, the form of the verb to be will be was. And for the others, which are you, oh, there's a little mistake there. You, we, and they, we're going to use the form were. Alright, and then our formula is an affirmative subject, was or were, depending on the person we are referring to, and our complement if it's necessary. Normally, in this case, the complement is always necessary. Then our negative form would be our subject, wasn't or weren't, or was not or were not, and our complement. In the question, if it's a yes/no question, we have was or were, our subject, and our complement. And if it's an information question, we're going to insert a question word, such as were, what, how, when, etc. Let's look at the affirmative form. We have she was happy in the morning. She was happy in the morning. In the second one, we have we were late today. We were late today. Alright, we have our elements here. We have the subject, which is she. We have the verb to be in past, in this case was, because we're talking about a girl. And then we have our complement, happy. And our time expression, in the morning. Remember, we're talking about the past. Oh, have to get rid of that alarm. We're talking about the past, so the time expression is necessary here. In this case, we have, in the second one, we have we were late today. And then we have our subject. The verb to be in this case is were, because we're talking about we. And then we have our complement, late, how, sorry. And then we have our time expression, which is today. Alright, and then again, remember, we're talking about the past. So in this case, a time expression would be necessary. Let's check the negative form. We have I wasn't at her house last night. I wasn't at her house last night. Here we have a subject, the verb to be negative in past, which is wasn't, because we're talking about I. We have at her house, that is our complement, and our time expression, last night. In the second one, we have they. We have verb to be weren't, because we're talking about these people. And then we have our complement, sure about the situation. In this case, time expression is not quite necessary, and only if we want to be more specific about it. But just by writing sure about the situation is enough to understand the complete idea. Alright, finally we're going to go over questions here. The first one, was the movie good? Was the movie good? Where were you last Friday? Where were you last Friday? And then again, as you know, we normally invert the elements when we're using a question. In affirmative, the first one would be, the movie was good. But since it's a question, we're going to change the subject and the verb to be, and we're going to swap them, and the result is, was the movie good? We have the verb to be, the subject, and our complement. In the second one, if it's because it's a information question, we're going to use the question word. In this case, were indicates location, and the question is, where were you last Friday? We have question word were, the verb to be in this case were, because we're talking about you, and we have you because it's the subject, the most important part of the sentence. And finally, we have last Friday, our time expression here. Very good. Let's go back. Don't forget that we're making this video for you, especially directly from English Solutions for Business and Life. We're covering Unit 6 from our elementary book. We're checking grammar today. We saw the use of can for abilities and opportunities, some adverbs used with the same auxiliary can, and we saw the verb to be in the past form. Those are the formulas we already saw. Some examples. Don't forget that pronunciation changes a little bit between affirmative and negative. Can for affirmative and can't for negative. Questions, remember that inversion that we normally make when we use questions in English. Quite important, always to use it that way. Adverbs, don't forget that adverbs describe how we do things. For example, how does she sing? She sings well. We saw some examples. Normally, adverbs end in ly, but there are also some exceptions like fast. Formula for the verb to be in past. Quite simple, only 3 elements or 4, depending on the kind of, if it's affirmative, negative, or questions. It's always the same. Do not change this order. Affirmative, she was happy. Subject, verb, complement. Negative, I wasn't at her house. Subject, verb to be negative, complement. Question, we make the inversion of elements. Again, one more time. And we say, was the movie good? Don't forget that intonation at the end. And that would be the ending of this video. Thank you very much. And remember that this material can be seen by you as many times as you see fit, as you think or consider necessary. Goodbye.